Hello and welcome to the Dave C Show. Today we have Kelly from Indiana back once again. Kelly's pretty much a weekly interview now, and I'm delighted to have her back. Kelly, how are you?
I'm good.
That's good.
How are you?
I'm well, thank you. It's a bit cold, and I've got my Batman Christmas sweater on and my Batman background, so I'm ready to go. It's a bit annoying actually because I got this when I was living in London, and I bought it.
Love it.
I bought it just before, it was my second Christmas there, and I bought it and it didn't arrive until like after Christmas, so that was a bit annoying. And obviously in Australia, it's like stinking hot at Christmas time, so I don't get to wear it, at Christmas. But anyway,
Right.
I get to have Christmas in July, or Christmas.
There you go.
Yeah, instead. But yeah, I'm a little bit jealous.
I like Christmas in July.
Do you do that over there as well?
No.
No,
but
we don't.
my birthday's in July. So.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
So is mine. We're 3 days apart, in fact.
Yeah.
3 days and 10
Right.
3 days and 10 years, maybe. 3 days and 11 years or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, a birthday coming up soon for both of us. So anybody who wants to send us presents, you can do so. We will accept them.
We will.
As long as they're delicious.
Right.
Yeah. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about, maybe a little bit about ancient civilizations, but also more specifically, we're going to be talking about giants and those civilizations. So I've done a little bit of research on it, and over the years, and I kind of just had a little bit of a look just before this interview too. And the reason why, I mean, Kelly knows a lot about this topic, so I thought it'd be great to get her on and get her take on these things. And so we'll start with perhaps how many maybe like giant civilizations are you aware of at this point that were, are you aware that were happened?
Oh my gosh. I don't know that it's like more than one civilization, but it's definitely worldwide.
Yes.
Like, do you think it's more than one civilization of giants? Because I think it's more generational.
That makes sense. Yeah, I'm kind of thinking about it because I've seen well, there was a chart that I saw today, and I've seen this multiple times, and basically these giants range from anywhere from like 8'6" to all the way up to 36 foot, these things. So
Right.
I'm wondering why such a broad difference in heights. Is it because they have certain, like maybe like the human race, where we have different races and stuff? Is that the reason for the difference in heights? Or that what I was thinking was like, are these giants but they're just all different sizes, or they're different kinds of giants,
Well, my take on it is that they started out being the 36-foot tall guy, right? Like the gods of Greece, Zeus, Athena, all of them, they were huge, right?
Right. Yeah.
But then they started breeding with humans. So,
Okay.
When we breed,
Logistically,
right?
that sounds like a bit of a stretch, no pun intended.
Okay, yeah, but I mean, even in the Greek lore, a lot of the women would die during childbirth because the baby was so large.
Right. Okay.
So, but I think over the time of the original gods mating with the humans, we got a little bit smaller, a little bit shorter of a giant from that, and then those giants mate with humans again, and then you get another height difference.
Yeah.
And so I think that's kind of how it went. And actually, to kind of add to back up what I believe there, I actually went to school with a couple of who were 7.5 feet tall when we were 13.
Wow. Okay.
And each of them were born with an extra digit on their hand and on their feet. that the doctor removed at birth, but you could still see the nubs
Right.
where they had an extra pinky and an extra pinky toe on each foot. And they had a double row of teeth as well that the dentist
Oh, wow.
was at the age of 13 working on removing for them.
Mm.
And,
That's crazy.
the doctors, right? Well, the doctors had syndrome or something, because apparently Napoleon was born with teeth in his mouth, but not a double row.
Sure.
And so and they both had red hair also, very coarse, frizzy red hair. And so I started asking about, their bloodline and where they came from and stuff. And they actually came from this little community that was right outside of an Indian reservation.
Mm.
And, in hindsight, looking back on knowing them and learning their background, after knowing what I know now about Native American mounds, like we have a lot of mounds through Ohio, Indiana, several states. And those are actually like burial sites of the giants from where the Native Americans had killed the giants because they were carnivorous. They were eating them.
Oh, they ate the giants.
Cannibals. They were cannibals, right?
Yeah.
The giants were eating the Native American.
Right. Yeah.
And so the Native Americans would kill them. And all of the giants that were found inside of these mounds were very tall, 12 to 18 feet tall, and all of them had red hair. They had been mummified by the Native Americans after they were killed.
Yeah.
And so their hair and stuff was preserved. And they were all red haired. And so when I started learning that, I was like, holy cow, these two girls that I went to school with are totally from giants, just like I thought when we were teenagers,
Yeah.
They're totally descendants of giants.
Right.
Yeah. Because giants are known to have 2 rows of teeth and the extra digit,
Okay. Definitely makes a lot
hair.
of sense. I'm kind of
that's where hair comes from.
Yeah, just before, obviously we hear the story about David and Goliath, back in the Bible, and I'm
You're
not
frozen.
I should be okay now.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah. So obviously we know about the story of David and Goliath, and
right.
And I was thinking about that. I was thinking about what we know to be true in this day and age, and a lot of what's playing out now is a biblical prophecy too, in many ways. And so I was thinking that it's very possible that I kind of go back to just remembering that the fact that everything we know is probably a lie, or at least very much distorted from what it is.
Yeah.
So I think about things like mermaids and giants and maybe unicorns and fairies, maybe even elves and things like that. And I'm thinking, well,
Sure.
these things could all be real,
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even like dragons, I know that has nothing. There's articles, there are newspaper articles here in the States, mainly in the Southwest, from the 1800s that show pictures, actual photographs that were taken and put in the newspaper of all the cowboy men standing with this great big wingspan bird that the Native Americans called the Thunderbird. But it looks like a dragon, and it would kill the cattle. It would come along and kill the cattle. So they killed it in the 1800s.
Wow.
But we don't get to know that kind of stuff.
Yeah, because if you think about it, in the Chinese zodiac, there's 12 animals, and they're all real life animals, except for the dragon is the only one that doesn't exist in this day and age. Right. So why is that? Why is there one mythological animal and all these real ones? Why not have all real ones, or all mythological animals?
Yeah.
Like, it makes no sense.
As far as dragons go, I kind of personally feel like there probably are some still alive today. They're just staying well hidden in their caves and such so that they're not, hunted.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. That's
because there are people there are people that report seeing this huge, bird in the sky that some people think is the pterodactyl or um, the thunderbird or whatever. They'll call it that instead of calling it a dragon. But
Yeah,
in my mind, they're really all the same.
sure.
Those are all one and the same. It's just a different word for describing them.
Right. And this brings me to another question, which I have, which is kind of, I used to love dinosaurs as a kid, and if you believe some of the people in the conspiracy world, they're saying that dinosaurs have been made up, for whatever reason. I'm not exactly sure yet, but is that something you believe too? And if so, what do you think the reason is that they made dinosaurs up?
Hmm. I don't know that dinosaurs were made up. I mean, we do find legitimate archaeological digs, sites where bones are found.
Mm,
So, I mean, even here, fairly close to where I live. So, I don't really know that they're made up per se myself.
okay. Okay. That's interesting. Yeah, because I had a guy on my channel once, a flat Earth guy, and he was, 'cause in the flat Earth community, they say that dinosaurs are made up, and the reason for that is they want because they believe that they live in this enclosed, flat plane. Then
Right.
and well, to be perfectly honest, I believe that too. Now at this point, I'm not seeing, you know, I'm not of all the things, like there's just too much. There's too much out there to suggest that we're definitely not. We're not rotating. But anyway, that's another story altogether. But
Yeah.
so the reason why they say that the dinosaurs don't exist is because the dinosaurs were wiped out by a meteor, and in an enclosed thing, there probably aren't any meteors, and if there were, the reason why they say that they've got wiped out is because it's like another thing that could wipe out humanity, and it's also a way to get people scared, keep people living in fear of something that could happen. um I don't know, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that, I mean, we already know that meteors do actually hit the planet. Um, they're now making diamond rings, and diamond jewelry from the meteors that we find here on Earth. I actually own a very beautiful ring made from a meteor diamond, which is the coolest thing ever because it's from out of this world. But there's also fossil records of, that's actually what I was getting ready to say a few minutes ago. We have footprints of man in the same rock that we have found here in the States.
Mm,
So I think that the story of the dinosaur is not being told to us in whole truths.
okay,
Absolutely.
sure.
As man did definitely walk amongst the dinosaurs.
Okay,
They were in the same world.
right.
It wasn't, here was dinosaurs first and then man came later. That's not what went on. Or we wouldn't have footprints that are fossilized of, man and this great beast
Mm,
in the same limestone, in the same bedrock, it just wouldn't exist.
right. Yeah, and I've seen big footprints of like enormous footprints, like bigger than,
Yeah.
whether the man's foot's like this big, and the footprints like, way bigger, of these supposed giants, and
My thumb just looked wonky weird.
so again.
when you went like this, your thumb just totally turned into your background.
Yeah, it's the weird thing about these backgrounds is,
Everybody's gonna think you're a cyborg.
yeah, I'm not CGI, but it I wonder if, because I just saw an article about Tartarian giants, and do you know much about Tartaria?
Yeah,
Okay,
I
so
mean a little bit,
when
not a lot, but a little bit.
okay, well, I don't really know anything. So when would you say that timeline was? For how many hundred years, or what was the timeline that we're talking about?
Like how long they existed,
Yeah,
or how long ago they existed.
both. Both.
Well, I really have no idea on how long ago. Really, I have no idea on how long they existed either. But I would think that just like any other um, human species, they lasted at least a full age, what the indigenous people would call a full age.
Mm,
So that would be what, about 5,000 years at least, minimum,
right. Okay. And
being modest.
this was a highly advanced civilization, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, so was the Atlanteans, and a lot of people don't realize that the Atlanteans were actually quite tall.
Right.
They weren't your average 5 to 6 foot tall people. They were,
Mm,
averaging 9 to 12 feet, from my understanding.
okay.
So, even they would be considered a giant to us.
Yeah, absolutely. And when was do you know roughly the timeline of of that Atlantis?
Atlanteans, well, yeah, actually, I do because I started doing. Okay, well, from what I learned about the binary star and um, the whole cycle of 26,000 years that it comes around, its solar system and our solar system kind of get together. If you break that up and go back, well, excuse me, it's actually 3,600 years that it comes around, every 3,600 years. And if you go back in our history, work yourself backwards. From now back 3,600 years, the first cataclysm that happened worldwide was Noah's flood,
Okay.
which is documented all across the world.
Yeah.
And 3,600 years prior to that was Atlantis
Okay.
going under. Is that right? Did I do my math right on that? Maybe they're the third phase. Because we also have, when Pompeii happened, or Krakatoa was erupting, that affected global environment and such. All of those fit when I did that study. Somewhere I have those papers, and I'll dig that out sometime. But every 3,600 years, for approximately 26,000, we have documentation in some form of some type of cataclysm, and usually a pole shift happening.
Right.
Through ice core samples, tree trunk samples. Now they're studying the temperature change and the flow of the water within the currents in the ocean, because all of that is changing now. Where how's it work? The Pacific is supposed to warm up faster than the Atlantic or something like that, and it's switching places now, and they're watching that for our next impending pole shift and cataclysm. And we're a little overdue for that, actually. But so I would think the Atlanteans was somewhere around 9 to 11,000 years ago, is
Right.
what I was getting.
Okay. Yeah, because I'd heard that this 26,000 year cycle, it's now. We're starting in the new cycle, right?
Yeah.
One's come to an end, we're starting a new one.
Since around 2012, we've
Right.
been in the new cycle. Yeah.
Okay. So my question is that I'd heard that the reason for the cataclysms last in all the other times is because the people that were inhabiting the earth at the time, they weren't ready to go to this new vibration, the next level. Is that true?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like consciously, they weren't ready.
Yes. That's the importance of the awakening this time, is
Yeah.
so that everybody can raise their vibration and more of us survive this time. Because, humanity has always survived in some form.
Yeah.
Pole shift, past the cataclysm, but we want more than 1/3 of the population this time to survive. So, and I know that sounds a little scary for people, but it's really not something to be scared of, because this awakening is going so fast. I mean, like so crazy fast, that there's enough people waking up and raising their vibration that we're definitely going to get through this.
Yeah.
It's not even like, oh, our vibration is higher, so we're going to get through it. It's okay, because our vibration is higher, we're going to know how to get through it. And that's
Yeah.
what people like me are here for, is to show you how. Because we really are more powerful than we understand at this time.
Mm.
That's
Yeah.
going to make a huge impact on how well we get through the things that are coming.
Yeah.
Which I have a whole video series coming out on soon.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk more about that just before the end of this interview.
Yeah, and just real quick, I want to plug a movie for everybody to watch. Sun. It's a free movie. You can find it online anywhere.
What's it called?
Everybody, The Time of the Sixth Sun.
Okay, Time of the Sixth Sun.
Yeah. Everybody needs to watch that because it has everything to do with our hidden history and the Great Awakening and what's coming at us and what we're going to do to move forth into the new.
Okay, awesome. Well, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I'll be checking that one out for sure. And because of the, if we look back at these civilizations, which we could argue were very advanced, why then were they? They're probably more advanced than we are now. Would you say, from a technological standpoint, not withholding the technology that we have no idea about? You know what I mean?
Okay, well, the answer to that is yes and no. Yes, they were more advanced than we are now, but not because they were more intelligent, but because there was less greed. Because we actually have all of the technology that we need right now to have free energy and much better medicine and the whole deal, right? But it's being suppressed by the powers that be, to keep us down, to keep themselves in control. And they full well know what's coming at us too. That's why all of the millionaires have bought underground bunkers or private islands.
Yeah.
I mean, they know that it's coming.
Yeah. So how come these other civilizations weren't ready and they had to experience a cataclysmic event where it wiped out a very high percentage of their population, and they were more advanced than us, yet we are in a better position from a conscious standpoint? You know what I mean?
Well, okay, yes, I know exactly what you mean. Think back to Atlantean days. They had Thoth, right? Thoth, Toth. Some people pronounce it different. Thoth, right? Thoth. He wrote the Emerald Tablets. Thoth. I call him Thoth.
Yeah.
So the Atlanteans had Thoth. They had one, right? After Noah's flood, we had Noah for the Noah's flood, just one. And then we had Moses, he's just one. And then Jesus, he's just one. And all of these people, all of these ascended masters were here for the same purpose. They were here for the same goal, to help people really wake up to their full power and rise above what they were being told and raise their vibration and use their creative potential. Right. And none of that ever worked, right? None of that worked because they only had the one. This time, there's millions of us.
Okay.
And I mean, just about everywhere you look these days, you can find someone that's teaching you how to be you. Eckhart Tolle, even Abraham Hicks from, a decade or better ago. We've had so many people now that are starting to come forward. I could name tons of people, but I'm sure your viewers will get the message here. They know about these people. They're popular people, but there's so many of us coming into our own power even now, this year, last year, since 2012, that are really stepping out and showing the rest of the world, hey, this isn't crap. This isn't a joke. This isn't just some nice new religion. This is really who we are at our core.
Mhm.
I mean, the most legitimate phrase we are ever going to hear is that we're not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. We are all earth angels. We came to this planet to experience our own creation. And then we fell asleep and forgot how to be creators.
Yeah.
Now's the time to wake up.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, that was the way the off-worlders set it up, isn't it? When we reincarnated, they made us forget, so we would have to.
Right. That's really the whole point of our history being hidden and
Yeah, exactly.
altered in so many different ways. That's exactly the whole reason.
Yeah.
That we don't know about the giants really, or we don't know about what was in the Library of Alexandria really. People all across the world should know about the Emerald Tablets. They should know everything that I know, everything that you already know from doing research or tapping into your own knowing. We were cheated, but in a way, I kind of like it that it happened that way, because it made us thirsty for knowledge. Instead of being complacent this time, everybody's hungry for it, because we all know there's something missing. We all know that something's not quite right. And so we go seeking the truth, all of the people that watch your channel, they're truth seekers. Those are the thirsty. Those are the people that are awakening, because we all know there's a whole lot we're not being told.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was never really into history. I didn't study it much in high school. I didn't choose it. But as far as I'm aware, and from what I've learned, over the years, it kind of only really starts at the early 1900s. We don't really learn much about anything prior to that. And if we do, it's all about how man was this primitive being, and then we had to, then electricity was invented, and then so on and so forth. All these things like the motor vehicle was invented, and then and the plane and stuff. So we're like they've and yes, maybe those things were invented back then, sure, but they didn't tell you anything about what happened 300 years ago, 400, 500, 600 years ago or longer, where we've had these crazy technologies, these civilizations that were, from what we could tell, just far beyond anything that could be imagined, from what we're used to. And so that's they spun that story this entire time. And if you think about it, if you look at technology, especially with hand phones, think about how far phones have gone. So when I left school, we still had we had mobile phones. They weren't color. They just started becoming color. They didn't have any video. Maybe like a couple of years later after I left school, they had some video. It was terrible. And then look at that 20, because I've been out of school for 21 years ish now, 20 years. So you look at how far they've come, right? We've got now these phones that we have connected to the internet. They're mini computers in our palms, right? But you look at how like motor vehicles, and we're still using petrol, for fucking over 100 years.
I know. I've been waiting for the flying car since I've watched the Jetsons as a kid,
Yeah, so it makes no sense.
We have the flying cars yet.
It makes no sense. How can we make leaps and bounds in one area and be stagnant in another area for so long?
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Well, even the way that we power electricity, it's practically medieval, right? At this point.
Yeah.
Because we know how to create energy much more clean and free, but they're suppressing it. They're not allowing us to have it because it doesn't make them any money.
Yeah, exactly. I think it was J.P. Morgan that said to, might have been Edison. Oh no, I think it was Tesla. I think, and he said, I've got this. I can't remember exactly what it was, but he said basically J.P. Morgan said to him, if there's no meter on it, I don't want it. So
yeah, right.
Yeah, so that's why we went down this route. That's why we're going. But where we're headed is
those fancy little phones, they make a lot of money off of them. I know people that get a brand new phone every year, which is stupid.
Mm.
You know,
But
they're wasting their
it's
money
stupid.
on the newest, latest iPhone. I mean, no offense to all y'all that love iPhone, but you know what I'm saying? It's a racket.
Yeah,
It's a gimmick.
absolutely. And obviously it's also uh, they need us to be so many people are addicted to their phones. They need us to be
Yeah.
addicted to it, so it makes it easier to transform us into these into the technocracy and the robots and the transhuman, you know, beings
Yeah.
that they want us to become.
And to keep you asleep.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it when you think about it, it's like the TV is such a good brainwashing tool, but now you've got a brainwashing tool in your hand, you know, where you can be
All the time.
brainwashed 24/7 if you want to be, you know,
Yeah.
if you don't sleep at all. But yeah, it's crazy and just to think about how everything's been engineered. And now we're completely off topic compared, you know, we're talking about giants.
We
but
pretty much are.
but it really causes you to think deeper about every little thing, every aspect, every movement, every, you know, everything in your life. Like, where did that originate? You know, because everything starts somewhere, and we just kind of take things at face value because, oh, people have always done it that way, or you know what I mean. But when you really look
Yeah.
at things, if you go deeper, there's always, and because it's such a big agenda, this agenda for the world is so big, it's like every single thing that's happened to us is inching us forward, inching us closer and closer to this one world government, right?
Right.
So we'll go back to giants because that's what we were originally talking about. But when do you think was maybe, so do you think all the giants, or a good percentage of the giants, were wiped out in the last cataclysm, which was, I don't know, 3,500 years ago or something?
No, I don't think they were all wiped out.
Do you
No.
think there are still some pretty big giants?
Well, they might be probably not 36 feet tall, kind of, but we see remnants of them here and there in basketball
Oh,
players.
right,
You
yeah,
know,
okay.
um, here in the States, we have some quite tall basketball players that our recruiters have found in other countries and brought here. And, you know, but they're all over the world, these tall people, very, very tall people. And nowadays, they just try to call it some kind of syndrome, you know, giantism or whatever syndrome. They don't really want to attribute it to a real giant, a real living, breathing giant. But there's soldiers that have went to Afghanistan and Iraq and several places and come back telling stories about how they were fighting the giants in the
Okay.
caves.
Yeah, right.
You know, that they were transporting them on huge helicopters somewhere after they would take them down, even. So I think they do very much still exist. And even if you look at the book of Genesis in the Bible, the whole point of the flood was to try to wipe the giants out, in my opinion,
Okay.
and all of their, you know, mixed race descendants. But it says very clearly in Genesis that there were giants in the land before the flood, and then there were giants in the land after the flood as well. So it didn't, even the flood didn't wipe them out, you know. And I think they've continued to breed and live on.
It's really interesting because there was a guy, Robert Wadlow. Do you know who that is?
No.
I think he died when he was 22. He's from America, and he was, I think, the tallest guy in the world. He's 8'11", almost 9 foot. But they said that he had some problem where his pituitary gland kept excreting growth hormone, and so he kept growing. And there's a few people around in the world that are similar to that, where they just can't stop growing.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah. But then you look at, and there was, in China, for some reason, there's a lot of really tall people. I don't understand why. And even in India too. And Chinese are typically quite short.
Right.
fairly small people, but there are some really tall people in China. Like,
Mhm.
so
Yeah.
you got to kind of wonder, what's going on there.
Yeah. Well, even Mexicans, there's they're typically a shorter race, of people, and they sometimes they have some very tall offspring. I've actually personally known two very tall Mexican men that I was surprised to learn that they were of Mexican descent because they're so tall.
Yeah.
I mean, like really tall, like 7 feet tall, really tall,
Mm.
and you certainly wouldn't think that, a Mexican, and that's doesn't, I'm not trying to offend anyone, just, they are typically shorter people. And, Mayans are short people. Matter of fact, I've met a Mayan lady that was only 3.5 feet tall.
Oh, wow. Okay.
She was just simply a very short woman,
Yeah.
period.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you think that why do you think they tried to hide the giants from us? And did you hear something about something to do with the Vietnam War, where they I think there was a lot of giant remains in Vietnam or something?
Really, I don't know about that.
Yeah, I heard something recently, and part of the reason for the war was to I think that to really just hide the remains. I don't know if that's true, but I heard something. I
Yeah, that
heard
very well.
something about that. I don't know. I'll have to look
Mhm.
into that more. Maybe if somebody
Yeah,
knows, they can comment below.
yeah, that very well could be. I know that one of the pioneers from around the Grand Canyon area back in the late 1800s, he found a cavern within the Grand Canyon that had remains of giants that were mummified and Egyptian type artifacts.
Mm,
And he reported it to the local authorities, and they, had him bring them back there to show him where it was at. And the Smithsonian, in the late 1800s, the Smithsonian swoops in, gathers up all of the artifacts and the mummified remains, and hides them away. Like,
mm,
hides them away in the late 1800s.
yeah,
They were hiding stuff then because they knew the truth,
yeah,
But if we know the truth about all of our real history, then we also would know the truth about us, or at
mm,
least want to ask more questions and
yeah,
find more answers.
yeah,
And that's all very dangerous territory for them because this has been a plan for them for a very, very long time to have this stronghold on us when it was time for this vibration to go across the planet and raise everyone else's vibration, everything on the planet's vibration. They wanted to have a stronghold on that long before,
yeah,
so
yeah,
that we were in a position to where we wouldn't wake up, to where we wouldn't vibrate at our highest good. I
yeah.
mean, this has been a plan in the works for a long, long, long time.
Generations, centuries, even.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe longer. I'd heard that anything from like that 300 years ago, um, you know, but you say that like the plan to enslave humanity has been in place for 300 years or something, but the actual power structures on the over the planet have been in place for thousands of years, right?
Yeah, I would be willing to say, really, ever since they murdered Jesus about 2,000 years ago, this particular plan has been in place.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Tell us more about that, about the Jesus.
Well, he came here with the same message that I have and many others have, that, he wasn't trying to set himself apart as special. He was genuinely trying to teach the people to understand the concept of um, manifesting, understand the concept of perceiving solids and liquids, understand the concept that we can heal each other with our energy, with our,
Mm,
our spark that's within us, that's, God, because each of us have a piece of God in us. And my mother argues with me that this isn't in the Bible, but there's a quote in the Bible where Jesus says that he is no more the son of God than you are. And I believe it's where in maybe Matthew, it seems like it was in Matthew when he was talking to the disciples and he was telling the disciples to go forth in 12 different directions and do the things he had taught them how to do, you know, raising people from the dead, healing the maimed, making the crops grow plentiful, you know, purifying the water so that it's drinkable, so on and so forth. Because in your intention, your alchemical process is what creates, whether you're cooking the best meal or purifying water through meditation. It's the intention that you're putting in it. That is the alchemical process of this creation. And Jesus was trying and doing very well at it. And I'm not trying to take anything away from his honor by saying that he's no different than anyone else. I'm trying to honor him in what he was saying to people because they really don't understand what his message was. And I personally and a lot of other people are not going to allow his death to be in vain. He was very honorable and he was definitely an ascended master here to teach the masses. Unfortunately, he didn't have the opportunity to teach enough people for it to continue because, you know, his 12 disciples obviously knew those secrets and they coveted that knowledge and taught it in secret and passed it on. And that's what we know today as the Gnostics and the esoteric teachings, the secret teachings that the Cathars and the Rosicrucianers and the Knights Templar all carried sacred and protected. But then, you know, that plan was in place to shut that up. That plan was in place to remove true history and knowledge from the people. And so the Masons were infiltrated. We now know of the Illuminati, which probably at one point in and of itself started out to be some kind of sacred teaching that, you know, that was coveted, that was protected by the few, because, you know, with great knowledge or with great power comes great responsibility. So the knowledge of what Jesus was teaching, the knowledge that I have, that I am teaching, there's a certain feel of danger to it for it getting out to the wrong people. But I actually, just real quick, I want to segue this in here. I actually have come to the realization that there's some type of fail-safe that was created, like in the universal laws, that if you're not vibrating at a high enough level, the things that you're trying to do and create are not going to flourish and manifest in the best way possible. Similar to like witches when they do spells, they believe that if you do something negative to harm someone, that it comes back on you times 3 or whatever. And that's kind of the similar thing with this fail-safe of karma that's built into trying to use this knowledge. If you're not vibrating at a nice, good space of love when you're doing this, it kind of backfires on you and some bad shit can happen. So I think it's maybe not as dangerous as our forefathers believed it to be for everyone to know this knowledge.
Yeah.
On a grander scale. Now, granted, I mean, it's, yes, they can still manifest, and yes, they can still cause some harm if they have this knowledge, even if they're not vibrating from their heart space. So there is some level of danger to it, just not as big as they were worried. And maybe that's even how we got in the position we're in now, because that knowledge was infiltrated and stolen by the Freemasons, the Illuminati, etc. And so, you know, we find ourselves in this chaotic matrix that we're in the 21st century.
Yeah, I wonder, because they've had control of the technology for so long. I wonder why they didn't just introduce certain technologies, say for instance, the mobile phone 10 years earlier, so that we'd now be at this stage now in technology, advancing into technology where we are at now 10 years ago. You know what I mean? So maybe they could have implemented this whole plan earlier, because obviously the earlier they do it, the easier it is for them to enslave us, because less people are awake,
Right. But they treat us just like a business plan with projections and checks and balances. And so they're always putting their feelers out, their surveys and their popular opinion polls and things like that to see where people are at. And 10 years ago, we were much more complacent than 5 years ago. So we didn't need as great of a cell phone 10 years ago as we did 5 years ago, because more people were waking up, right? I mean, just since 2012, we've kind of been going in leaps and bounds. Every 5, 7, 10 years, you can see a big impact on the world, or at least one section of the world or another,
Yeah. I kind of, as somebody who's been awake for a very long time, not me, I'm talking about you, it must be awesome at the same, on one hand, it must be awesome seeing people wake up. On the other hand, it must be like checking your watch a little bit, because you kind of, you've been awake for so long. I mean, I've only really been, like, I would say, 2020 was a big wake up call for me, definitely. But I already knew about the New World Order long before then. But even I'm finding myself just looking at it's like you're sitting in a school and they're teaching you the same lesson every single day, and you're just waiting for the class to finally get it. Yeah. Like,
yeah. You're so bored with it.
Yeah, because of what you see on TV, and it's like the same BS every day. Like, and you're just like, when are people going to finally get this?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you this. Patience is not one of those virtues that I was born with.
Yeah.
And it's been a long 48 years for me, knowing what I know. But now that everybody's really starting to wake up, and it's showing in so many beautiful ways everywhere, like literally everywhere. I have perfect examples even. I am like so ecstatic, so excited, so tickled, and at the same time very humbled and emotional about it. Sometimes I find myself just like crying, just like tears will just flood out of me, because I'm like, oh my God, it's finally here. Like, it's finally fucking here,
Yeah.
So my emotions are, and I'm a Cancerian, so they're like that anyway, but amplified because of the awakening. Right. But yeah, even my cousin that I live with, she just started a new job, and she's come home every day this week telling me, Callie, there are people at work that are telling me that JFK Jr. may be alive and Trump's still president. He's going to take over soon. And she's like, they know.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's really showing up in the most unlikely places now, where just like everybody's talking about it, and they're not afraid. They're not afraid to talk about it. And that's beautiful to me. That's so beautiful. That's what we need. That's what we've been waiting for. That's what Trump's people have been waiting for. We need to be bold enough to use our voice and say what we think is going on without being afraid, of mockery or being shut up or censorship,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's one of I'd never been called crazy more times in my life than I did last year, probably,
Right.
And
yeah.
And the entire time, because I knew what I knew, I was just like, well, this is what I know. This is what I believe. Nothing you can say is really gonna sway that. I know it sounds crazy. I know that, and
Right.
a lot of the people, and I never talked about JFK. I never really talked about Trump still being in power. I talked a little bit about Biden not being in power, but for most people, they see, they see him doing whatever he's doing now, and they think, most people think he is, but yeah, the point I'm trying to make is that it's important that you just, speak your mind, and everybody
Yeah.
continues to speak what they believe, whether it sounds crazy or not. Because I tell you what, a lot of the people that have called me crazy are now saying, well, yeah, you're actually right, because
Yeah.
because
And
they can
asking questions.
because they can
Yeah.
see what's going on with the jab rollout, and all this stuff. Some people still think I'm
Yeah.
crazy, and they're never going to wake up because they
Well,
they may
and
they,
those are the people that will someday thank us for being who we are. So that's okay.
yeah. But yeah, it's interesting, and I think it's only just going to get more and more prevalent, where a lot more people who are being ridiculed by their friends and family are, especially in the next few months, I would say, there are going to be probably some very harsh truths that people are going to have to digest, and
Yeah.
you know, people like you and I and everybody watching this video are going to have to be there for those people to uh, to help comfort them and guide them and give, show them compassion and not say I told you so, even though it might be very tempting.
Right. It is. It is. But yeah, we have to be able to um, be humble and put our egos aside when that time comes,
Yeah,
because they're going to be the most freaked out, honestly. I
yeah,
mean, think about it. When somebody finally jerks their head out of the sand,
yeah,
it's going to rock their world.
yeah,
And, that we can smile about that, talk about that like it's kind of funny at the moment. But when it really comes down to it, this is our loved ones and our friends and, even strangers that will
mm,
come to us with the questions of how the hell did I not see this? And what the hell is really going on? And oh my God, all of the different reactions they're gonna be in a very terrified state of mind and confused state of mind for a while. And it's gonna
yeah,
be our job to comfort them and calm them and reassure them that, we got this.
yeah,
And by then all of us will be ready to really mean it when we say we got this.
yeah. It is. It's
Yeah.
gonna be. It is gonna be crazy. Uh, there were many times, especially when I came back from London, where when you're going through phases of growth, you it's very painful, obviously, and you kind of there are times where you're feeling really depressed and you don't even know why, and maybe it's because maybe you're experiencing a spiritual awakening. I don't know, but or maybe it's because you've found out a lot about the world that you didn't know existed in the first place, and you don't know how that information is going to affect you when you first find out, because you're like, well, crap, like if that's true, then what is you know you start piecing
Yeah.
all the pieces of the puzzle together, and then you're forced to question everything, and it's very
Right.
difficult, and it's very difficult for people. I've had somebody say to me, like last year, I said, well, look, this is what I think, and the reason why I think is because I'm a truth seeker. I seek out. I want to know what's going on. I don't have all the answers, but I want to know. I want to know. I want to be able to separate the BS from what I think is the truth. And that same person
Right.
said to me, well, we're all truth seekers. And I'm like, well, you're not. Like, we'd be having a different conversation if that were the case. So,
Right.
and the reason why most people aren't is because it's scary. It's very
Yeah.
scary, to
It
be able to face the truth uh, about the world, let alone yourself. I think that's one of the scariest things. you know, uh, you
Actually, I
know,
was just getting ready to say that we must be in sync with one another.
yeah,
Because, yeah, that maybe my forehead's becoming magnetic.
maybe. Have you tried?
No, actually, I haven't. I should.
Ah, I'm
Um,
surprised.
right? You actually, I totally would have done that any other time. I don't know why I didn't. But yeah, it's hard for us to face truths that um, are in our outside world. And it's hard for us to face truths about ourselves on the inside world too.
Yeah,
And I think when these last this last phase of people really wake up to what's going on, it's going to be the worst possible dark night of the soul journey for any of us,
mm,
honestly. And
yeah,
we've all went through our own Dark Night of the Soul, which is actually very similar to the different emotions that you go through when you mourn, when you lose someone and you're mourning them. You go through these different steps of like anger and denial, then depression and sadness, you know, not understanding why they were taken or whatever. And people are going to go through that same type of mourning process, you know, with being angry.
That's going to be fun.
They're going to be angry, be mad as hell. And then they're going to doubt everything. They're going to question everything, and which is good. But for them, it's going to be amplified. So
it's going to be like a double smack.
Because I don't envy them at all, honestly.
It's because because it's a double smack, because it's the truth about the outside world, but it's also a truth about themselves.
Right. All at once.
Because they'll have to reconcile with the fact that they've been deceived, and nobody likes to be deceived. You know, they'll have to admit to themselves that they've had the wool pulled over their eyes for however many years, particularly in the last 1.5 since this thing kicked off. You know.
Yeah. So, and they're going to have to realize that they actually allowed that to happen.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
it's not like any of us are victims in this. We have free will. And if you choose not to listen or not to look, then, and you're complacent and neutral, that's the same as choosing not to care.
Yeah.
So they're going to have to come to that realization that they actually allowed this deception to happen, not just to them, but to others. And when they realize the magnitude of who has been hurt and what has happened to create that pain and yada yada, you know what I'm talking about, with the children and all that.
Yeah,
it's gonna fuck with them. It's gonna I mean, morally, why would it not? Right? It messed with me to learn it, you know.
Yeah.
Because we've all been complacent to some extent in politics or wherever, you know, different areas of life. And when that hits them, it's going to be really, really awful for them. And so that's when we're really going to have to pull out our compassion and, you know, really love people hard.
Yeah. It's interesting because on one hand, somebody like me who was never really into politics or anything, and you were the same, right?
Yeah. I hated it.
Yeah. So you've got people like us who don't care about politics, but then you've got people who are really into it, but they think that their vote counts, so they go out and they vote, and they're really into it, but they don't necessarily see it's a funny dynamic. Can you see where I'm going with this? It's like we don't care about politics, but all of a sudden now we're forced to care about it because we know what we know. But the people that really care about it, they go and vote and stuff and vote for a party. They don't know what they don't know. So they don't really, you know, they care about politics, yet they don't care enough to, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's a really funny dynamic.
It is. And it's kind of a catch-22 in a lot of ways too, and a mirror even, because here you've got the people that care about politics who go out and do the voting, you know, religiously, passionately, and then their vote doesn't really matter and count. And then you've got people like us who were forced into this arena and learned a whole lot of crap. And so we passionately went and voted as well. And the thing is, the catch-22 here is that this time the vote really did matter. It really did make a difference, because we weren't just standing there stuffing a ballot. We were putting our intention into it. We were creating an alchemical process. And even just in my country alone, the amount of votes for our favorite president was beyond anything in history. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's a fact. I've seen the actual vote tabulation, you know, that our military had running in real time.
Okay.
I've also seen the theft that happened. Okay. But that's the catch-22, because right now everybody thinks that the other guy won.
Yeah.
And really, our favorite president won. But the votes were stolen. And again, this goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning of the segment, that if enough people don't care and use their voice, then how much can they get by with? There's so many people that know that Trump really won, and they're not doing anything about it. They're not kicking and screaming. They're not saying a damn thing, But then you've got people like Robert David Steele, who are leading the charge. Him and a few other good men are leading the charge across our country and trying to get people to understand what really went down and how it matters and what we can really do as we the people to make it change, to make a difference, because that's what they're all waiting on. Yeah, they could storm in with the military and make it all right, but if the people themselves aren't awake enough to be aware of what's really going on, what good is that really going to do for them to do it that way? The people themselves have to understand what's happening. Otherwise, they just fight the military, and then we end up with like a civil war.
Yeah, and it's kind of I want to say the word funny, but it's not really what I mean. It's like it's an interesting circumstance because so many people voted for Mr. T, and it's such a small. Well, I think it was maybe 10 million voted for Biden, perhaps something like that.
I forget what the number was, but it wasn't real. It wasn't anything to brag about.
No, so I'm kind of wondering, like, yes, they want to avoid civil war, and I understand that, but there's, how many of those Biden voters are? Look at how many people turned up to his rallies. Barely, like 10. So like
a whole parking lot full of rented brand new Jeeps with nobody sitting in them.
Yeah. So who's really going to do anything? Who's really going to do anything about if Mr. T comes back and maybe the military help him to do so? Is anyone really going to do anything about it? You know what I mean? But
well, I think there's a lot of people that actually voted for him that don't know what me and you know. That if the military came rushing, they would be maybe willing to fight against the military. Don't trust our government, and
sure.
So we would just see that as those people would just see that as a threat instead of our favorite president, the military trying to make things right. I don't think they would. You're froze.
Yeah, my internet was unstable for a second there.
Bring your energy level down some.
This magnetic, I'm still magnetic, so maybe that's why.
Right. See, that's what I mean. You're messing with your stuff.
Yeah.
You need to shield that shit.
Actually, what I said to you a couple of weeks ago about having to adjust my sound, my ears are definitely I think my hearing's definitely heightened. I'm finding that I went to, where did I go? I went somewhere recently where I was like, this is too noisy here, and I don't usually have a problem, you know what I mean, like that. Right. But I went somewhere and I was at the pub or something, and I was like, this is just too noisy, and I can't turn the volume down there, unfortunately. But
yeah,
so I don't know how I'm going to deal with this moving forwards if it gets even more, sensitive.
It'll balance out. It'll balance out for you where you get used to it.
Okay. Will I be able to turn it on, turn it off? Like Superman?
Well, I mean, kind of. It's kind of like that. Maybe that's how you could describe it. I mean, it's always more amplified, but you're just, once you get used to it, you're better able to be choosy what you're listening to.
Oh, okay, sure.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe we should end it there. It's about an hour. But
Okay.
let's have a quick chat about your video series if you'd like to talk about that, and we can let everybody know what it's going to be about and when it's going to come out.
Okay, well, it's going to start this weekend. Probably Saturday will be at least the first one. I'm going to start a whole segment on holding space for people until they learn how to hold their own space. This is the best way I'm going to word that for now.
Yeah.
So stay tuned, because that's going to be very interesting. I'm going to take YouTube to a place that no one's ever taken it before.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just put it that way.
Okay.
Some really different stuff. And we have, I'm going to start those Zoom meetings very soon, which in the video package that I'm starting this weekend, there will be links in the description on the Zoom meeting information, because we're going to start doing those so that people can learn how to hold their own space, learn how to manifest for themselves, learn how to cleanse their emotional traumas all the way back to childhood. I mean, we're going to start doing a lot of different workshops so that we can really get everybody where they need to be. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Sounds awesome. Well, I would definitely be checking that out.
Yeah. And we're on Telegram now. What is the group called? Do you remember? Is it Earth Song? What is it called? Help me, David.
It is
Earth Songs Lovecraft.
Yeah, Earth Song Lovecraft.
Yeah, Earth Song Lovecraft. So anybody that wants to join the Telegram group, who's ready to mix and mingle with the awakened, please come join us.
I will leave a link down below. I'll get the link from you because I don't think I have it here, but I will. Yeah, I will leave a link to your channel and the Telegram group down below. So everybody who wants to develop, spiritually and in personally, definitely go check Kelly's channel out. She's got a lot of great tarot readings on there, and she's also obviously going to be releasing the start of those videos this weekend. So
yeah, and workshops soon to come. And shout out to Glenn, who created Telegram for us. Love you, Glenn.
Yep. Much love to Glenn.
Who I know is watching as soon as this airs.
Excellent. All right,
He's
Kelly.
one of your favorite subscribers,
Oh, is he? Okay. Hello, Glenn. Yeah. How are you? Awesome. Well, it's been a pleasure once again, Kelly. And yeah, I will speak to you, no doubt, very shortly.
Right.
Thanks for coming on.
We will definitely keep in touch. Thank you for having me. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.